The coda of the sonata in Berg's opera Lulu, Act 1, Scene 2, measures 6:15 through 24, has always been a favorite of Lulu scholars. Hans Redlich describes it as one of Berg's most deeply felt melodic inspirations, and George Perle calls it the most memorable melodic element of the opera. The coda's expressive effect derives in part from its dramatic meaning, for it is here that Lulu, reacting to Dr. Schön's wish to be free of her, desperately professes her love to him. Berg composed the first draft of the coda immediately after discovering Dr. Schön's row, the predominant row form of this passage. This row is formed by extracting pitches from the source row of the opera using a palindromic pattern, first skipping one note, then two, then three, and then the reverse, 3 notes, then 2 notes, then 1. Berg discovered this new method of row derivation through correspondence with his student Willy Reich, who wrote to Berg in the summer of 1929 about 2 rows which he called B5 and B7, formed by extracting every 5th note from the source row and every 7th note. Here is the sketch of B5 and B7 that Reich sent to Berg. During Berg's first 2 years of composing Lulu, he derived other rows from the source row, shown here, that do not feature patterns of extraction. The coda is one of 3 passages in the opera that demonstrate how Dr. Schön's row is derived from the source row, what I call a derivational unfolding. In the last and most dramatic of these passages, during the death of Dr. Schön, his row is literally subsumed back into the source row. The coda is the final theme of a sonata. Each theme of the sonata represents a different character and topic of conversation. According to Berg's sketches, one of which is transcribed and translated here, the coda represents Schön's possession by Lulu, his Zugehörigkeit. Here is a recording of the coda with Teresa Stratas as Lulu.
Meines Mannes! Wenn ich einem Menschen auf dieser Welt angehöre, gehöre ich Ihnen. Ohne Sie wäre ich will nicht sagen wo. Sie haben mich bei der Hand genommen, mir zu essen gegeben, mich klein lassen, als ich Ihnen die Uhr stehlen wollte. Glauben Sie, dass Sie vergessen sich? Außer Ihnen auf der ganzen Welt hat je etwas für mich übrig gehabt.
Berg's derivation of Schön's row from the source row is shown in staff 1 of the following sketch, with Schön's row in pencil and the notes of the source row in blue pencil. An early draft of the coda, minus its 2-measure introduction, appears on staves 7 through 14. In the margin appears mit Entstehung aus Urreihe, with derivation from the source row. Berg demonstrates the derivation of Schön's row from the source row by separating its notes into the melodic line, E, A, C sharp, D, G sharp, B, B flat, E flat, while retaining the notes of the source row in the accompaniment. He then sustains E flat, order number 8, through the next 4 measures, while completing the remainder of Schön's row in the accompaniment. Berg has added the order numbers of only the source row in this sketch, which appear in pencil. This combination of rows is a beautiful expression of the text where Lulu exclaims, "If I belong to anyone in this world, I belong to you." In a later sketch of the same passage, Berg is even more explicit about the derivation of Schön's row. After the two-measure introduction, Berg writes Ur plus Schön equals Reihe, source row plus Schön equals row. He labels the passage with both the order numbers of the source row in pencil and the order numbers of Schön's row in blue pencil. In the example, the order numbers of Schön's row are circled in blue and the order numbers of the source row in red. The melodic line of the entire passage is now expressing the fate rhythm. The fate rhythm is an ominous reminder that Schön will be murdered by Lulu and accompanies the deaths of many characters in the opera. The second phrase of the coda, staves 7 through 8, is a heightened version of phrase 1 with wider intervallic leaps. Berg again articulates Schön's row from the source row, but he breaks off the source row at order number 8 with major-minor 7th chords accompanying the remainder of Schön's row and leading to Schön's outburst, "Let me out of this," and the recapitulation of the sonata. Again, Berg's 12-tone technique reflects the dramatic situation. Schön's row breaks free of the source row, just as Schön breaks free from a Lulu, to begin his man of power main theme that signals the recapitulation. Even though Schön's row is derived from a set pattern of palindromic extraction from the source row, both drafts include sketches in which Berg is attempting to form tonal harmonies from Schön's row. Staves 3 through 4, the previous sketch, for instance, we can see Berg stacking the notes of Schön's row into triads, which he annotates Harmonia in Dreiklinge, and his first verticality forms an A major chord. He sustains E from the first harmony into the second verticality, which allows him to form an E 7th chord, E, G sharp, B, D, a 5/7 in relation to his A major chord. Berg's tenor voice moves by step to the G flat, which forms the third verticality, E flat, G flat, B flat. And finally, the last verticality is a major chord C, E, G. The E in this harmony is the beginning of the next statement of the row at P4. Now let's look at how Berg constructs the introduction of the coda using triadic harmonies. In his final sketch of the coda, Berg has now strategically transposed Schön's row in the opening 2 measures to P8. This allows the final harmony, E, G sharp, B, to function as a 5 chord to the first harmony of the coda proper. The overlay of the fate rhythm in the soprano now gives the introduction a suspension-like effect. For instance, the initial E from the previous row form does not resolve to F, the third of the D flat, F, A flat triad, until the 4th eighth note. Finally, in the printed score of this passage, Berg makes the 5-1 relation between the end of the introduction and the next measure even more explicit by adding the note D in the bass, not part of the 12-tone row, which changes the harmony to a 5-4-2 chord. Berg then adds a C to the bass, also not part of the 12-tone row, in the next measure. So the 5-4-2 chord now resolves to an A minor 1-6 chord, which contrasts beautifully with the prominent C sharp in the soprano. With these insights into the creation of the coda and Berg's 12-tone technique, let's end this analysis by listening to the coda a final time.
Meines Mannes. Wenn ich einem Menschen auf dieser Welt angehöre, gehöre ich Ihnen. Ohne Sie wäre ich. Ich will nicht sagen, wo. Sie haben mich bei der Hand genommen, mir zu essen gegeben, mich klein lassen, als ich Ihnen die Uhr stehlen wollte. Glauben Sie, das vergessen sich? Wer außer Ihnen auf der ganzen Welt hat je etwas für mich übrig